Good morning and a very welcome back to Morning Express on this 15th day of January 2015. It is Thursday, and so we're all about the state of the nation. For the next 1 hour, we're discussing and focusing on matters education. Yesterday, we saw the industrial court come and bring the parties together. And as far as the teachers' strike, which was on day 8 yesterday, called off by the industrial court, asking the TSC as well not to, hold on to or not give salaries as they'd threatened on the members that teachers that had not been attending classes for those that period of time that they were on strike. And in the next few days, the parties involved, that's the TSC as well as the unions, will be submitting the memoranda to the industrial court, who will be the arbiter. They will decide going forward who will get what, who will not get what. So will the unions emerge out of this having their way? Will they term it as a victory? Of course, we'll wait to see. Or will the TSC have to cede a little bit more ground than they were willing? We saw them giving that off of 9.3 billion shillings, but on allowances. On salaries, it was going to amount to about 150 billion shillings, if that was to be put in. One of the things we had the cabinet secretary say that it was unrealistic that Kenya could simply, in her budget, not afford what the teachers were requesting. But that aside, one of the issues, of course, we'll discuss is the strike and what emerged, but also there are numerous issues in the education sector, from matters of the curriculum, the quality of education, free primary education, is it working or not? We'll look at all that and much more. And so joining me to have this discussion today in studio, I have on my extreme left the NAT chairman, who is Mudzo Nzili. That's the Kenya National Union of Teachers. They've been spearheading this strike, of course, KUPPET part of it as well, and towards the end we saw them merge and go into it as a united front. Also with us is Honorable Julius Meli. He's a tenured member of parliament, but today here in his capacity as the vice chair of the Parliamentary Committee on Education. That's, of course, in the National Assembly. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us today. I'll begin with you, Chairman. Yesterday, that decision coming out from the Industrial Court, many hours behind the closed doors in that meeting, just trying to negotiate and see what best can come from that. Are you happy with the decision by the Industrial Court?
I must say, Kenyans must have confidence in the courts. Mm-hmm. And as a Kenyan, and as it was demonstrated one time by the president of this country when he was called upon to attend to his international court accusation in Hague, he demonstrated to Kenyans that we must respect the rule of law. Mm-hmm. So that alone gives us the opportunity to have confidence in the laws of this country and in the courts of this country. Therefore, as Kenyans, we must appreciate the action taken by the court.
Okay. I'll come to you shortly, Mheshimiwa, but in the event the court does not find in your favor, that is to have an increase in your basic salaries for the teachers, that is, will you still be happy with the decision that it is them now to arbiter the matter, the court to arbiter the matter? Actually,
before the commencement of the proceedings, all parties submitted themselves to the court. Mm-hmm. And therefore, in our own opinion, we don't find the judge giving unfair ruling. Whatever his determination will come, we shall be happy, because once you submit yourself to the court and you say, willingly, we submit, we must also submit and appreciate and take whatever it comes from the judge, because that is the industrial court is the final arbiter.
Yeah. So
in
whatever
happens,
matters, you'll accept it, even if you don't get the pay increase. All right. What do you make of the decision, Mheshimiwa?
I want to say that the decision that the courts came in was very timely. Mm-hmm. And I would want to thank both parties, because as an oversight committee of the National Assembly, we've been actually working with both parties, the TSC and the unions, trying to bring them together behind the scenes. Been talking to them, and the fact that they have appreciated and accepted to submit themselves before the courts shows that our leaders are mature. Our leaders are ready to listen to one another, and now we are moving ahead. Whatever comes of the courts, these are our institutions, and we need to respect them.
Okay, because Chairman, you talk about maturity, but about 26 meetings before this particular strike was called had happened between the various stakeholders, yourselves, the TSC, with no agreement, with no consensus. Why is it, in your opinion, it took so long? Why couldn't you agree that the matter had to then go to court?
Thank you. There was a misinterpretation of certain clauses of the Constitution. And that's why we needed the court to come in between to try to adjudicate and tell us who is interpreting the law correctly. You realize the Teacher Service Commission and Article 248 is a constitutional commission. And constitutional commissions under Article 249(2) are not subject to directives or control by any other person or authority. So in the situation that was obtaining was that the Teacher Service Commission was always making reference to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission under Article 230, subsection 4, whose functions and the powers are properly outlined there, to set and regularly review the salaries of state officers, and B, to advise the national and county governments on salaries of all other public officers. So instead of advising, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission had taken upon itself to setting and reviewing the salaries of teachers. That was the bone of contention, and therefore the Teacher Service Commission was unable to take a decision for all the 26 meetings. That's why we said.
But as teachers, you are public servants, correct?
Right.
Number two, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission was seeking to conduct a job evaluation, but isn't that a rightful practice around the world on human resource?
Correct.
So what exactly were you opposed to? Because they were saying, before we have a conversation on this pay, let's first evaluate, because across the board, any employer wants to be sure that what I'm paying for really meets what I'm receiving at the end of the day. So what was the bone of contention in as far as SRC position and what they wanted to do?
Thank you. I wish to bring it to you and to the nation the awareness that the Bill of Rights, as contained in Chapter 4 under Article 41 on Labor Relations Act, subclause 5, allows the employer and the employees to engage in collective bargaining. And while this collective bargaining aspect is entrenched in the law, and so in our own understanding, that is where we need the judge more. In our own understanding, the trade unions and the Teacher Service Commission were engaging in collective bargaining, and the Constitution still provides under Article 259(3) that a function or power given to somebody by the Constitution shall be performed by that body or person as the situation warrants. And therefore, while we were doing that with job evaluation, leave it alone and like that, this was coming from a court order of the strike that we had been given 90 days to conclude a collective bargaining agreement and then deposit it with the court. And in the return to work formula, there was no clause of job evaluation. These were issues brought in at the middle of the game. And so in our own understanding, we said, we cannot wait for job evaluation to commence and to have it completed within 8 months, because the laws of this country allow that whenever, for us to be given anything, the process of budgeting must take its due process.
Okay.
And before we go to the budgeting, we have to go there with something. Job evaluation will take 8 months, which is past 1st July. That will therefore take us to the next financial year. And that, in our view, this country will go into an election period in 2017. And we are also going to our election period in 2016. So we needed this thing concluded so that we can have something in the new budget.
All right, so he's not opposed to the idea that correct job evaluation should happen for all public servants. But at the end of the day, what he's saying now is that the period of time that it was going to take and their demands, they want it now, that then would mean it pushes that forward in terms of their money, because this job evaluation then would perhaps play a huge role in determining what they get at the end of the day. What do you make of the argument vis-a-vis what you're hearing from the TSC?
The argument put forward by Teacher Service Commission is that first, they had to do the job evaluation, which is also SRC saying, and two, they will also want to say that their demands were not factored in this financial year. And to me, I also believe that actually they need to have sat down, agree with the employer, the employee and the employer need to understand one another, and two, we had certain issues which are actually very pertinent to the employee-employer relationship. More so, the issue of basic pay. And this one is a right of every worker. When you talk about basic pay, the worker moves and agrees with the employee that the kind of salary I receive vis-a-vis the kind of work I give you is not commensurate. What we need to do, let's sit down and let's agree. That's actually the position that Nat was putting across. The government on the other side was just saying, we don't have enough money, we don't have the resources as of this time. Please, we want to sit, give us time, we evaluate what you are doing so that we can be able to see if actually we can be able to pay you what for the kind of work you are doing. And in that position, to me, I believe that given the position the industrial court has taken, it is actually going in the right direction.
Yeah, but as a legislator, in terms of having factored these demands and the needs of teachers, I mean, this is not coming up now. Yes. This CBA has been in place for a while now. Why is it in the budget making process, perhaps even your committee, why are we not seeing more of that involvement to ensure that then this doesn't spiral into strikes? Because this has become almost perennial, that we keep talking about strikes year in, year out. But yet again, you are there to ensure that these budget making processes, that your input and argument for the teachers and the education sector to continue running without interruptions, as we've seen, happens.
Thank you. I want to say that the budget making cycle begins immediately when the budget of the previous year is read. And as education committee, which we are actually bestowed with that authority to really oversee the budget of the sector, each and every time the treasury set certain ceilings, and there are certain demands that are brought before the committee, before the sector. One of the issues that we didn't get in the last financial year was the teachers' salaries and the CBA. In the new constitution, I think it is very clear, and the chair knows here, that it was a requirement by SRC that all CBAs be concluded before the last financial year. Unfortunately, they had not concluded a CBA. And it wasn't factored into the budget of this financial year. And that is why it is prudent upon the Teacher Service Commission and NAT and all the unions to conclude a CBA with the help of the industrial court, so that as we move to the next financial year, we are able to factor in their demands. And we'll want to bring this issue of the strike, which is very perennial, once and for all to a halt. And we wish that when they sign this CBA, CBAs are actually for the financial circles, that it can be 3 years, 4 years period in all developed democracies. So we wish that when this issue is concluded, the issues are brought before the committee, they are brought before the budget committee of the National Assembly, and we shall present them before that particular committee, and the issues will be settled.
All right, and at this point, I just want to invite our viewers watching this morning to be part of our discussion. Our phone numbers I see already on the bottom of your screen, just under State of the Nation. Those are the numbers you can call in. They're open now, and be part of this conversation. Share with us your thoughts, your views, that yes, on one hand, the industrial court has called off the teachers' strike, but on the other, of course, we will be waiting to see what the decision will be from the industrial court in coming days, but also just the other numerous address issues that we've seen in the past affect the education sector. Talk to us this morning. We'd like to hear from you. But Chairman, there was an offer on the table, 9.3 billion shillings on allowances. And one of the things we had, the reason why the unions were refusing that allowance offer is because at the end of the day, then you do not get to reap from it as the union officials. But a basic salary in terms of remittances means your take home as union officials goes higher. That is why you are insistent on a basic salary increment and not allowances. Is that correct?
No, it's not correct. In the first place, in a negotiation process, you begin with first items. And the cow's tail comes from the head, after the head. You just don't see the tail as you are facing, the cow is facing you. In a negotiation process, we begin with the salaries. And the allowances, why did we reject the allowances? We have a committee constituted under the Teacher Service Commission Act 2012, Section 13, subsection 5. And we are represented as the unions. Kenya National Union of Teachers is represented by 4 people, and KUPPET by 1, making 5, and the government side is presented by 5 others, then the neutral chairman. The procedure of the game is we negotiate. But on this particular aspect, there were prescriptions that you will take this, you will, and we did not see those things on the table. We saw them in the press.
What things?
We saw those allowances proposals on the press. And when we were asking, where did you arrive at this?
So
and
are you
in
saying
those,
it was never presented
no,
to you?
It was never. It was never.
Shillings?
It was never. And in the proposals, hardship allowance, which had already been negotiated in 1997, under legal notice number 534, where it is capped on 30% of the basic pay, it was instead removed from being capped at 30% to a certain maximum. Maximums of which we had not negotiated. 2, the leave allowance that they were claiming to have given us. Our proposals from both the memorandums, KNUT and TSA and KUPPET, it was an equivalent of 1 month basic salary. We needed engagement. For anything that we receive in the salaries and consultative committee, there must be engagement. The employer cannot come alone with the prescriptions for us to swallow. So that was an anomaly, and the rules are there, and we have sat and documented rules which are supposed to be gazetted, and their guidelines. Any game has guidelines.
All right, before you continue on that point, I'll bring you in, Mheshimiwa, because he says that offer was never made to them, and you earlier indicated that you were involved in terms of, backroom conversations with the various stakeholders to try and resolve the impasse. So is it correct that that offer was never on the table?
I wasn't a participant in the negotiations as when they were talking, but actually when they reached a stalemate, we did decide to come in as a committee to talk to the Teacher Service Commission and to talk to NAT. But when they were actually having their proceedings, and for sure that we are an oversight committee, we are not supposed to favor any of the two sides as members of parliament. We are representing them. We listen to what the government is presented on the table. We listen to the demands of the union. We want them to have an amicable solution. As a committee, we do not send a representative to the negotiations because we are not supporting any of the two sides. So
you are not aware of the factors?
We are not aware of what
talks.
Yes.
Okay, back to you, Chairman. The CS, the Cabinet Secretary of Education, said that it was unrealistic what the pay increment for your basic salary would mean for the teachers in the terms of the budget. Kenya could not afford that. The budget. Did the teachers as a union, did you understand that part of the argument, or would you say he was being a little bit dishonest?
No, I appreciate and I respect the Cabinet Secretary. As an individual and as an appointee of the President, and this is what I said, and that is what I'm saying now. You realize that the Teacher Service Commission had offered zero. Does zero interpret or translate into the billions he's talking about? That was unrealistic, because as a cabinet secretary who is supposed to spearhead the education sector, he must be neutral and principled. Yes. And when he's giving a statement, that statement should not injure any quarter. We respect him, but in our own assessment of his statements, he was behaving more as a propagandist than a professional.
No, because, and we'll continue with that question, but let's speak to Mohammed, who's calling us from Isiolo. Mohammed, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm great. Let's have some volume in studio. Thanks for calling. Go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, madam. Morning to the chairman and the MP, member of parliament.
Yes.
Yes, one thing I wanted to put forward is that it is good for the teachers to be remunerated well. Because as Aristotle said, the fate of the empire depends upon the education of the youth. And the success of any community depends on the foundation that it has been given to its youth. The second point, of which is of paramount importance, is that the teachers, especially after they have been given their dues, I want the chair of the NAT to ensure that they have gone back to class, and especially in these marginal areas where you find a school having 20 children but scoring an average of 140. This is not auguring well for the success of this community. And thirdly, I would like the member of parliament pass this message to the Teachers Service Commission that a DEO, District Education Officer in Isiolo, who is based in Kiambu, is not attending his duties. And because I think he's one of the untouchables, you find he's not even attending the duties. He only comes there once in a while, but the state of education is in crisis because the county government cannot do anything, and that is a function of the national government. But at the end of the day, you expect that child from that remote area to compete aggressively with the person in Nairobi. But the Teachers Service Commission appointee or the Ministry of Education appointee is not there in the field.
All right.
And the quality assurance has been there for a very long time.
Okay, Mohammed.
Changes apart from the teachers being remunerated.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohammed. Let's also speak to Stephen. Stephen, thanks for calling. Go ahead with your contribution.
Thank you, madam. My contribution is that I think the government is playing games with teachers. When Uhuru was campaigning, he pledged that he will pay teachers. Now he's quiet. Now, the kind of, when you look at the role of the industrial court, 2013 we went on a strike. The matter was put in the industrial court that we deposit a CPA in 90 days. It rested there. After 26 meetings, nothing is coming forth. Now again, we are being referred to the industrial court. I'm compelled to believe that the industrial court is a machinery used by the government to calm us. Because if the increment, for example, a P1 teacher was 13,000 and the increment was 200, the people concerned, if you looked at that, can you really say that that's an increment? Make a comparison to what the same CRC gave to the MCS. The MCS, even some without KCP certificates, are earning 250,000 as their basic, as their pay per month. And a teacher with a master's degree is earning 70,000. For how long is SAREM going to review this? I think the best would be you only go to court if there's a deadlock. There was no need of us having a deadlock on this matter because with inflation, the teacher's pay is below, and it was only prudent that TSC and the Ministry of Education look into it to motivate teachers to teach. Because as we are going back to teach, we are so dismotivated that this is like a go-slow. So in my opinion, the Minister of Education, TSC, are playing to the whims of the government, but they are not addressing the real issues. There was no need to go to the national court.
All right, Stephen, thank you so much for watching and for calling in this morning, sharing with us your thoughts on the issues around the education sector. And we'll get to what Mohammed has said and Stephen, but just before I forget what you were talking about before we went on break and before we took the calls rather, you said what the CS was saying in as far as whether the economy or the budget could factor in the raise. But also one of the things he mentioned in as far as the demands that are, coming from the teachers is that, and we've talked about performance evaluation or job evaluation, if you like, that one of the statistics they have is that about 47.3% of teachers do not attend school, do not go to school. So on one hand, yes, you're pushing for the rights of these teachers. On the other hand, there's an argument of what are some of these teachers getting this pay increase for? If there are figures showing that teachers are not in school, then some are in school and are not teaching, the 47.3%. What do you say to that?
There's a problem with the people who have benefited from a certain system. We find it extremely unfair for people who have benefited from the efforts of the teachers, saying those teachers are not there. The products of teachers are found everywhere, including Mheshimiwa here and yourself. And
yeah, but that doesn't answer the question.
Let me come that.
Fact,
and the 47%, the Ministry of Education, the Teacher Service Commission has a disciplinary process that whoever is found absent, the Code of Regulation allows the Teacher Service Commission to take disciplinary action. Absenteeism cannot generally be considered as indiscipline because some of those people absent may have been out with valid reasons. And if they were not, the union has never obstructed the Teacher Service Commission from taking appropriate disciplinary steps on teachers who are considered to have been absent without acceptable explanation.
Okay, I'll want your comment on that because the argument then would be, is the government, the parents, and more importantly, the students getting value for their money? On one hand, teachers want more money, but if they're not in class in the first place, what's the value for that money? Actually,
I'm concerned as a representative of the people. I want to say this, that as a committee, we're also concerned with that report, that actually action need to be taken. So that if actually 47% of teachers are not in class, the Ministry of Education, the Teacher Service Commission need to swing into action. We are not supposed to lament over issues that are there. And I think the inspectorate arm, and when you look at these particular issues, you know very well that education is the right of every child. It is enshrined in our constitution. To us as an oversight committee, we need to make education serve what it is intended for. One, the child needs to be taught. When you look at the Nasimna report and the Elimietu report, which is giving us all this, it actually paints our education system with a lot of grim statistics. That if actually teachers need pay, they need this money, then it should also add up that they need to work, they need to teach, they need to be in school, they need to have actually education that is going to promote.
So who's dropping the ball in all these stakeholders? Who's dropping the ball in as far as, on one hand, that's not happening, this learning, there's no value for money that's being received. Who's dropping the ball there?
It goes back to the Ministry of Education. At the same time, I would want also to tell Nat, the chair is here, that they need to establish a department within themselves. Apart from agitating for the salaries, they should also tell their members that they need to make sure that there is value for the work they give. They need to go to class. And I want to say that the other day I went to their National Delegates Conference, and they have established a very clear department. I'd want them to go in there and ensure that let this teacher who is not teaching, let this teacher who is not working in the staff room. In fact, the statistics shows that some of them who are in the staff room and they are not teaching, let them teach. And I think they should assist in ensuring that such kind of work is going on.
Because maybe it would even make your case easier. When you come and ask for more money and the work speaks for itself, then anybody would be like, would be on your side, would be on the unions and the teachers' side. Give them more money. The work they're doing speaks for itself. It's excellent.
Actually, the professional integrity of the teaching profession lies in the Kenya National Union of Teachers, on the other hand, the teacher himself, and the inspectorate, that is the Teacher Service Commission, and all the arms in charge with overseeing the performance of the teacher. And as a union, we do not defend lazy teachers. We do not defend any teacher who is openly indisciplined without, we are together. We have been together with the stakeholders, and we keep on encouraging our teachers that everybody must live to the expectation of the profession. But in the event that the Ministry of the Teacher Service Commission has failed in its role to identify where was the ministry, where was the Teacher Service Commission, why didn't they discover? Because in every term there is inspection. So, why don't they discover and suggest ways and means of how we can come together and arrest the situation?
So do you think you have a role to play in as far as
Definitely.
Okay.
Because as a profession, because Teacher Service, KNUT is both a professional organization as well as a trade union. And you become a representative for KNUT after having been a professional. So you must understand and support the professional ethics. And perhaps Kenyans need to see more of that other side to NAT that supports and pushes for that professionalism you're talking about. But let's go to the callers earlier on. Mohammed raising a few issues there, that as children, students are going back to school, the teachers as well. You also have an issue where there are teachers who actually want to be transferred from some of these areas. He was raising concerns about Isiolo, that the numbers there and all the other. He talked about a district education officer who's in Isiolo but based in a different county, and that is not showing up. Perhaps you'll comment on that. But to your members who now they have to go back to school, have been directed as such on Monday, and just during the strike, we saw many of them saying we're not going back to some of these areas that have had even security challenges in the past few months. I appreciate the concern of the people on the ground, but I also want to challenge them, as they have challenged me here, that I must contribute. Peace and the right to life is guaranteed in the Constitution. If by any degree we are traveling with my brother Michael and I'm Salim, but Michael is isolated from me and he is killed, or if I'm traveling with Salim and I'm Michael and Salim is discriminately killed, then there will be that feeling that this discrimination is unfair, and everybody has fear of some degree. So whereas we would like teachers to teach in certain areas, and teachers' appointments deserve that they require that they teach everywhere, but peace and security must be guaranteed to every Kenyan. So the president has said repeatedly, the president has said repeatedly that for us to proceed to prosperity, there must be peace. Why should there be insecurity on certain people? So at this particular moment, and as far as Monday is concerned, and we want to speak to Mohammed, who's calling us from Mandera, what do you tell your members who are saying they're worried and concerned for their safety and do not want to return to this? I have some reservation on that, because peace is paramount and security. So you're saying they should not go until I have not said that. I have said we are coming tomorrow. Our council is coming tomorrow and to deliberate on some of those issues. Okay. All right, let's speak to Mohammed. So clearly on that one, and I'll come to you, sir, you comment as well. He's on the line. Thank you for joining us. I know you're calling us from Mandera. First, your contribution before we engage further. And please reduce the volume on your television, because I can hear myself, and that means you'll have a delay hearing me and answering the question.
Hello, morning, Madam Sophia Wanuna,
reduce the volume on your television and let's communicate on the phone, because then you'll not be able to get me. Yeah?
My comment is teachers
are demanding for a pay increase, while they know that it is only SRC that is mandated review allowance for public hospitals. I would like to advise, even civil servants have been promised raising allowance, but recently SRC released a circular on hardship and house allowances, and yet they say it will implement in phases with the availability, depending on the availability of funds. According to me, I feel teachers should wait whether the court favors for them or whether it will not favor for them. I feel it is high time teachers go back to class and choose to dialogue, because our children are suffering. Almost 2 weeks now, our Jasoma. So my request from the chairman is, please tell the teachers to go back to class.
And they are going back. So they are going back on Monday. That's already sorted and settled in as far as when school resumes. Monday is a back to school day. But I wanted to ask you one quick question. You are in Mandera. It's one of the areas we saw that attack last year. Some of those killed were teachers, and there have been concerns with some feeling they do not want to go back because of security concerns. You're on the ground. What sense and what feeling are you getting from there in as far as now Monday has been said that it's go back to school day? Are they looking forward? Are they saying they'll go back? What can you tell us?
For me, I will urge all the teachers to come back to Mandera, because Mandera is safe now. It is very safe for teachers. It is very safe for every other Kenyan who wants to come to Mandera. I will urge them to come back to class. And my next question is, since SRC is mandated to review allowances for all public officers, I think if the teachers were demanding harmonization, and now their salaries have been harmonized, and now they are requesting for increment, do you think civil servants' salary will also be increased? Because they are working with the same government. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, and we'll put that to the chair of the NAT. Let's also have a listen to what Paul, who's also calling us, is on the line. Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Sophia.
Thank you so much for calling. Go ahead with your contribution.
Okay, Sophia, I have one issue. I'm a teacher.
Yes.
And currently, as I speak to you, I'm in job group J. And my minimum is 24,662. The Secretariat of TSC is now earning 47,189 in the job group J. Surely you can see why some of these issues raised are very genuine, because every time teachers went on strike, the salary that is anybody that is under TSC goes together. Apart from, with effect from this January, these secretariat have gone much far, in fact more than double than the teachers on the ground. Sasa mimi nashindwa, kwani sisi tuna moyo mmoja, wao wana mioyo mbili? Can they address these issues so that these disparities do not kill the spirit of education in Kenya?
All right, thank you, Paul, and also for just breaking it down for us with your own personal example. We appreciate you for that, watching and also just calling in this morning. So you had something to say before I go back to Chairman, a number of questions for him there.
Yes, thank you. I want to say that on the issue of insecurity, I'd want to point out very clearly that we have one country, and I know there are challenges, and I know there are issues that came out in Mandera, in the Northeastern, about the teachers, and even those who were killed, to have taken almost a religious angle. I would want to say that it is proper that the government has taken action, and as a National Assembly, we passed a draft of very serious security laws. And my calling to all Kenyans is, we are not going to balkanize the nation, so that certain religions are going to be in particular region, certain people are going to be in particular areas. We are calling on the government as the members of the National Assembly and as Education Committee to intensify the security of all Kenyans, and more so, especially in areas that have been affected by by insecurity like northeastern.
Okay.
And they should go back.
And
Teachers should go back.
Yeah.
They should go and teach there, where they are nurses, they are engineers, they are what. And we should drive our nation as one.
All right.
Yes.
So finally on that security matter and issue, because an important one, you're saying until you get assurances on security, you're not going to say whether those in those areas that are concerned about returning to work should go back or not.
I have not said that.
What
I have
exactly is your
said
position, sir?
The governing council, the National Advisory Council of Kenya National Union of Teachers,
Right.
that draws from the whole country, making a total of 500 participants, will deliberate tomorrow.
Will deliberate. So the position will be announced later. All right. Mohammed from Mandera was talking about harmonization having already taken place in as far as the teacher's salary. And so differing, of course, with the poll later on, who's given us an indication of his salary, job group J, getting 24,000, but the same in a different public service is 47,000. And he's talking about the disparities. So on one hand, there are those who feel like Mohammed, that harmonization already happened. Why is it the teachers are working in a vacuum that they feel that they're the only ones, and yet there are all these other public servants? If everyone went up on demands, I mean, surely would there be money for anything else other than salaries?
Thank you. I'm happy that I'm with the chairman here. This is a blessing to the teachers of Kenya. I want to bring out an issue that the Teachers Service Commission, as a constitutional commission, in their circular, when they were intending to increase the salaries of teachers, and then they withdrew the intention, they went ahead to increase the salaries of all people working at the Teachers Service Commission. A person now working the Teachers Service Commission with effect from January will, at job group D, who is a sweeper, and I do not demonize a sweeper, but because he has no, a sweeper,
he has no what?
He has no skills, as he is not as educated as a P1 teacher.
Some would argue otherwise. Some of those
group D,
are very
job group
well-educated.
D,
it's just an issue of
job group D is getting 17,800, and a teacher in job group G, that is the lowest paid teacher, P1 teacher, is getting 16,000. That is where the disparity is coming from. And this is a circular that was sneaked without passing the procedures of job evaluation and the rest of things. So teachers working within the same commission, under the same commission, earning less in the field than their counterpart workers within the same commission, with less education back, earning more. That is where it annoyed, and it is contained in the education news. And those are the details that fueled even the strike.
Okay, what do you say to that? That yes, on one hand there's that harmonization, but still it does not mitigate, it does not, cover those gaps that are glaring and the disparities that the unions are talking about.
Yes, I think that one actually, these are some of the rafts of issues that they are supposed to present to the industrial code. And I would want to support the issue of the teacher on that particular issue. Actually, if there is a glaring example of a worker at job group D, for example, as you said, it is quite unfair. But at the same time, these are some of the issues that we are now supposed to bring to a conclusion when they sign a very comprehensive CBA.
Correct.
So that if they are going to have an understanding that a teacher is going to progressively move from this particular salary point to this particular salary point in 4 years, it will have addressed all these particular issues. But one point I want also to note is that the secretariat staff is a very lean, small staff. And it is also supposed to be a staff that is actually supposed to be serving all the 280,000 teachers strong in the field there. And the various points where they work differ. This is somebody who is working in a computer room, is working on this particular thing. A teacher is working on the other side. These are some of the nitty-gritties we need to look into so that we don't actually generalize things all through.
Okay, I understand.
I appreciate Mheshimiwa's standpoint.
Yes.
We are not talking about the technocrats. We are talking about, we have talked about job evaluation. And if a sweeper has more to give to this nation than a teacher, then that is something that should be looked into. I appreciate the way he has been handling teachers. That's why he's a friend of teachers. Okay. But on that particular aspect, I think...
All right, we have the TSC chair with us online, joining us, Lydia Nzomo. Thank you so much, Madam, for being with us this morning. Let's begin with that decision by the Industrial Court yesterday. One of the directives that we saw coming through is that TSC would not discriminate against the teachers, of course, for absconding or not being, being on strike, not working in that period of time. Is TSC keen on doing the same, or will we see some of those threats of not paying salaries being implemented?
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes, you have, just repeat it again, please.
First question is whether TSC, the judge did direct that there should be no discrimination when the teachers return to school, because earlier there was an indication that those who were not going to class would not be paid. So will you be paying all the salaries?
You say that was the decision of the court. Mm-hmm. And once we get that one in writing, then we are going to work out modalities of implementing the decision.
All right. So there will not be any discrimination. Teachers should not be worried that they might suffer some disciplinary action might be taken against them because of being on strike?
Yeah, as I'm explaining, once we get the court decision in writing, mm-hmm. Because it will be delivered to the commission, then we'll work out modalities of implementing the court decision.
Okay. And in as far as the decision that we saw yesterday, the court saying that it would be the arbiter on this matter because there have been numerous meetings that have not bore fruit. As TSC, are you satisfied with that outcome?
I think on the issue of numerous meetings, it is true there have been a number of meetings, but they have borne some fruit. It's not correct to say that the meetings have really not come up with anything.
What would you say they have bore? Because we were, up until yesterday, children were at home, not in school, and fruit perhaps in this particular issue would be interpreted as solving the impasse, which didn't happen. So what, in your opinion, was the success of that period of time that the kids were at home?
Oh, you mean the success of the meetings?
Yes.
No, yesterday it was successful, but you see, you can have a meeting where one side demands one thing and the other one is not able to meet the demand, and however many the meetings will be, then they might not bear fruit towards that direction. Mm-hmm. Because you see, the main concern was the basic salary, and the meetings had actually fruit on other issues that were discussed, like the allowances. It's just the basic salary that didn't bear fruit.
Okay, just the basic salary. So in the event that the court finds that in fact the teachers' argument, the unions, the argument holds merit, and find that they should be paid the amount that they're asking for, TSC and the Ministry of Education has so far been saying they don't have the money, we would then see you obliged. So what then would happen to the argument that you've been using now if in fact a few weeks from now the industrial court rules in favor of the unions?
Now, I might not speak for the industrial court, but from where I sit, we didn't have the funds that we could have committed to the basic salary. However, since the industrial court has taken up the issue, I think we need to wait and see the progress of that process.
Yes, you didn't get my question. What I'm asking is, if the industrial court finds, we're speculating here, that the union's argument holds merit, you're saying you did not pay because you did not have the money. So if they direct that you pay, what happens?
I wouldn't know what will happen, but to see what the industrial court required is that the unions will put their memorandum down again and the TSC will respond to the memorandum, and the industrial court will pick up those issues and discuss them with the National Treasury and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. It's a process, and we need to wait and see the outcome of the process.
Right, so you're saying there is no way perhaps an outcome would come out that would then mean that it cannot be met because of those consultations. One last question.
No, we are not saying that nothing will be met because of consultations. I'm only saying that consultations are necessary.
Yes.
And we wait once they are concluded, then we'll see the outcome of the consultations.
All right. One last question before I let you go, Madam Chair.
Hello?
Yes, do you hear me?
Hello?
Yes, one last question before I let you go.
Yes, please.
There are those teachers that have been raising concern about returning to work now that the court has ordered that Monday next week is back to school. There are those that have not wanted to return to their areas, workstations because of security concerns. Of course, going by what we saw happen late last year. As the TSC, what is your position?
On the teachers?
Yes, those who are saying they want to redeployed, they want to work elsewhere because they do not feel safe in their current work stations.
Yeah, we are working with them. We are working with the teachers. We are working out modalities so that we find out the best way to handle the issue. We are actually having meetings with them, and let's first of all conclude this before we can give a public statement on it.
Okay.
Because we are saying that in those areas where there is insecurity, there are other public officers, and the teachers will be handled like the others.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair Lydia Nzomo of the TSC, talking to us this morning. We appreciate you taking the time to discuss some of those issues with us. What do you have to say, Chair? You've heard what the Chair had to say there.
On what?
On the various issues, whether it's, the question of waiting for the direction from the industrial court, because she's saying at the end of the day, well, some would imagine that one of the possible results from this is that the industrial court will come and say, give the teachers what they're asking for. But from what we're hearing is that actually at the end of the day, the industrial court will be consulting with even the Treasury, so that at the end of it all, the decision that comes out is one that's not unrealistic, as we've seen the Education Ministry say that the demands were.
It is normal for the industrial court to take its decision, and once it has taken its decision, like any other court, after a lot of soul searching and looking at the law and the logistics and the rest of the things, the decision of the court will take the day.
Okay. All right, I want to bring this to you, Mheshimiwa. I had asked the question earlier to the chair about the strike, and some of the stakeholders, even in the ministry, felt that the strike was more about the unions and not about the teachers. The question of why, in fact, the push was for basic salary, because it would then impact on their take-home, and not the allowances that were being offered, because in that they do not benefit at all. Did you get that sense? Do you share the same sentiment that this was really about the unions?
Madam, I think all strikes, if you look at all the trade unions, it represents members.
Yes.
And when you look at, for example, the dock workers union, the teachers union, and all that, what comes out of the bargain is mainly for the worker. But in this case, I've seen even some write-ups that the unions are not agreeing to what the government brought on the table because they had their part was not well catered for. But I don't want to take that part of the bargain because of one issue, that it is not a single thing that the union are talking about. They are talking for the interest of all their members. They are talking about issues touching on members' welfare. They are talking about issues that are touching not only on allowances, but even all range of issues, plus even the hardship allowance and all that. So when we are just singling out that it is only about the union's welfare, the union's money, and the union dues. To me, I don't subscribe to that because I saw it as something that affected all the teachers.
That affected all the teachers.
Yes.
So there was that sense that perhaps it's because the unions were not getting their end, and in terms of the officials, what their take home would be, that they were very adamant on hardline positions.
No, I want to make it very clear. Majority of the teachers, about 5,000, may retire by the end of August. With the type of the salary packages that they have, their emoluments packs will be small. The reason why we have been insisting on the salary package is that it builds up on one's retirement benefit, because the pension is calculated on the basis of the last pay somebody earns, not on the allowances. And so that is one area that motivated us to, we have seen people who have gone on retire, and because they have gone with very small packages, they do not make the ends meet. On the allowance, on the union dues, Kenya National Union of Teachers, to be specific, has a maximum of collection of union dues, upon which, when somebody reaches that maximum, even if your salary increases, we do not increase the union dues. It is 2%, subject to a maximum of 1,200. And the majority of our members are already past that maximum.
So Sylvester Kiprop is asking, if the court decision doesn't go your way, will you go back to strike?
The industrial court is the final stage where you lodge your grievances. We go on a strike to invite the parties to the table. And if the industrial court makes a decision, you cannot appeal against it. So I don't see us going on a strike again on the same issues that the industrial court will have adjudicated and ruled.
Okay. We want to bring this to a close in the next about 5 minutes. And a lot of other issues, of course, we have dealt quite some on matters of the strike and emanating from that. But the education in itself sector has received a lot of criticism in as far as how it has worked in the past couple of years. Enter free primary education. You have now classrooms with so many students. You have 40, 60, even some 101 teacher. The question of even no classrooms in some parts of the country. You have the free laptops that never were and never became a reality. And also the argument that should have even that been the priority in the first place. The ranking of schools, that's the other day being removed when the results were announced. A myriad of issues. As the Vice Chair of the Parliamentary Committee on Education in the National Assembly, what needs to be the priority now going forward? Number one, on ensuring we don't have same script, different cast, that next year or down the line, perhaps in year exams, which usually would happen, we see another strike being called for. What needs to be the first thing to be prioritized as far as education is concerned?
Thank you. As the Education Committee, one of the first things we need to prioritize is to ensure that we have quality education that comes with costs. One of it being that we need to employ, and that is what we have been talking about. We've been putting this across to the Teacher Service Commission and the government, that at least we need to ring fence money to employ up to 20,000 teachers, so that these teachers will not have a classroom of 100 students. That's a big issue. If we are having a classroom of 100 students, then there's no teaching. Two, we also, as government, and I think I want to say this, it's very clear, we are moving in a modernized world.
Yeah.
When we talk about lack of classrooms, lack of teaching facilities, in fact, many of these will be dealt with by the Constituency Development Fund, where they have put up a number of classrooms. On the issue of the laptop, and I think this is a very controversial issue, I want to put it very clear that this is something that we as members of the Jubilee want to see it implemented, and hopefully this year, so that each and every child each and every student has access to a lab.
You say you as members of Jubilee, but you get a sense as a government there's a prioritization of the issues, rightfully so, in what is needed to be done, because an issue that was close to the heart appeared to be very close to the heart of the president, even in the campaigns, well, the laptops. But look at the education sector, so many other issues in there. Laptops in themselves failing, part of that money going to pay Anglo Leasing. There are those that feel that the government does not even have its priorities right in as far as sorting out the mess in education.
Madam, I think you are not getting it right, because in this particular issue of the laptop, already the government had allocated money.
Yes.
It became a procurement issue.
It did.
Yes, but...
And that money then started being
No,
redirected.
the money is still there.
Some of it went to paying Anglo Leasing.
I don't want to be quoted, but I know the money is there for the laptop. The biggest issue that is giving a problem to the laptop issue is actually something that is of procurement, and that's why it went up.
Correct, and that's the question. Where the question is, should that even have been where the starting point for the government? Laptops, the standard one pupils, or these other issues like what you're talking about, the ratio, teacher-student ratio, infrastructure, the classrooms. Shouldn't there be other priority areas being worked on at this particular point?
Let me just put it very clear here. The issue of infrastructure. Each and every constituency has almost up to 100 million shillings, which can really put a lot of change on infrastructure in classrooms. So that money is there. Two, when you talk about the issue of a teacher-student ratio.
But education is still not a devolved function, which is what I want us to talk about, because we've seen now the majority leader in the National Assembly and other quarters calling for devolution of education, still a national function. So are you saying, because yes, you say that money is at that level, constituency level, but it's not in their mandate to really...
No, it's not. When you talk of CDF, I'm not talking about the county money. I'm talking about CDF. Constituency money, which is actually a national function of government. So these monies, if actually will be increased, if the CDF will be increased, we are going to solve this issue of lack of infrastructure in schools within a very short time. Two, when you talk about teachers, and I think this year they have employed about 10,000. If we are going to employ 20,000 and ring-fence that for 4 years, we'll solve the issue of teacher ratio once and for all in this country. The third issue, when you talk about the issue of facilities and even the laptop, let me just come back to the laptop issue. The laptop issue is a priority, and I don't want us to look at it as not priority, because if we want to be a digital nation, if we want to ensure that our students are going to have access, and you know, even the curriculum, when you talk of curriculum here, the content has already been developed, and it shall run across all the subjects. And as a teacher, I've known this, and the KIA has done that. The only thing is, we want the ministry officials, led by the CS, to really get this right and implement it on time.
Okay, I'll come back with one more question for you, sir. But what do you say to the devolution question? Perhaps that is the way forward to ensure that issues are addressed closer to power at the county level.
Education is a national function, and devolution of education cannot be done alone. The aspects of the constitution that needs to be amended shall be addressed. And if my brother, senior brother, who I respect, Duale, is suggesting just from a public baraza that education will be devolved, I think that was an emotional outburst coming from the stress that he was going through because of the teachers. But if you come to devolution, if you come to devolution, I think we shall resist.
Why?
Because devolving education to the counties will see every county establishing their own curriculum, and that there will be variations. So we are saying...
But that could be mitigated in law. That does not have to happen. Saying we are devolving education does not then result to different curriculum. Those could be some of the give and takes that could be factored into the legislation. But in just actual fact, because each county, one would argue, understands the issues. For some, there are different varying issues in the different counties. For some, it's classrooms. For some, it's teachers. For some, it's, well, you name it. So doesn't that then become a better way in approaching this, so that it's bit by bit meeting each challenge closer to the devolved government?
What we are saying as Kenya National Union of Teachers is that when it comes to proposals of devolution, which shall require a referendum, we shall also point out certain issues in the constitution that will be devolved. So it is not a matter of a public a press conference that we shall devolve education and then we go like that. We are Kenyans.
I want to comment on that, and I want to say that I think Schedule 4 specifies clearly how devolution should have gone into. And I want to point out that I think we have given more to county government than they can chew. As you look at what the county government is going through now, look at the issue of the health workers. Look at even the issues that have been given, the bits that they have been given. They have not been able to handle them well.
Yes.
If we are to devolve education, first of all, let us ensure that all the issues that have been devolved have been well taken care of very effectively.
Yes.
Education is a national function, as we are talking right now. And if we are supposed to devolve education as to be a function of the national of the county government, then we'll come back to our constitution. Two, I want to take a case of Tanzania, where most of they had at first tried to devolve even the TSC units. They have gone through a lot of problems that they're even thinking of now, that if they want their education system to run very well, they have to bring back the national government. So if we want our education standards to fall, if we want to balkanize some of the issues in this country, then it cannot work very well now. Let the national government, let the county government work with the health workers very well. Let them do what they have been scheduled, and our constitution is very clear.
Okay.
After we are through with that, we can now come back, even after 10 or 20 years.
Or 20 years.
Yes.
Our time is up. We must wind up now. But I remember asking this to you, and I think you mentioned for you, priority issue moving from this point, in as far as education is concerned, you said employment of teachers would be number one.
Yes.
What about you, sir? What would be moving from here in terms of the Ministry of Education, the employer, the TSC? What would you say should be priority going forward?
I wish to agree with employment of teachers as a priority area, because currently the public schools are badly understaffed, and that is why it brings about all the differences, to the extent that the cabinet secretary wouldn't like ranking to be done, because he fears the public schools will always come second after private schools because they are properly staffed.
Okay, and I like that you bring that out. Of course, those are some of the many issues we did not get to talk about, the question of ranking and whether really it sorts out the problem, and also the curriculum, we touched on it, but definitely another day, another conversation to continue with this one. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, gentlemen. Mudzo Nzili, my extreme left, who's the chairman of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, with us this morning, as well as the vice chair, the Education Parliamentary Committee in the National Assembly, joining us to discuss the way forward. We'll definitely be watching that story as it develops. NAT, they're saying they will be meeting and will give a direction in as far as those teachers that have been raising concerns that they do not want to return to their workstations over concerns and fears of security, their security, this owing to the events of last year. So we'll wait to see what that directive will be. Also, as Monday was cited as the back to school date by the industrial court, we'll be waiting as well to hear what they will decide, as they are the arbiter now on the issues that are bedeviling the education sector, more so in as far as remuneration. So we'll keep you up to speed with that. Do stay with KTN. After this short break, my colleague Michael Getonga will be taking over in our lifestyle segment this Thursday. He's all about setting goals and achieving them. We're saying it's January, we're not too far into the year, just got started, 14 days ago, midway into this month. Very important that if you're one of those people who are still waking up to January, you then realize that it's a whole year ahead of you with a lot of potential, and then it is important for you then to get your priorities right, set your goals, so that come December 31st, as you're waiting to start the next year, you look back and say, not a bad year. So stay with us for that discussion and much more.